Hey everyone. So we're gonna go ahead and do a tutorial for Clickteam Fusion. I know there was a release about Clickteam Fusion 3 coming out. I don't know exactly when, but trying to kind of promoting what we have currently. I have been using Clickteam or style Clickteam since it was click and play back in the 90s. And kind of upgraded over the years to like I think it was like Click and Create or something like that. Multimedia Fusion, Multifusion 2. I think it was Click and Play. No, Click and Play was the first one done by Maxis. Anyways, and then there was Game Factory. I didn't own that one because I just kept using what I had and I skipped over to Multimedia Fusion. So, enough of that. Anyways, rambling. What we're going to do here is we're going to create a how-to video when it comes to the usage of this program because there's a lot of like negativity towards it, and so I'm going to go ahead and show you how this will work. I'm going to check something real quick. So I was working on a conversion software a while back ago where it converted to took things from Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past on the Game Boy, and I think it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. What it did is it converted the information from the maps to tiled, and then from tiled into Clickteam Fusion using Lua scripting, which we will probably get into that at some point in time, but not now. But the reason why I wanted to open this is because I was curious. There it is, 256 by 144. So 256 by 144. So 256 by 144. Let's see something. You're not gonna see my other screen. Sorry. Like it's use it for looking things up during videos so that I don't screw up this overall display. But I'm checking something. So basically, what this is this is the original NES format with it scaled down to widescreen. So let's see here. So no matter what, 720p it scales perfectly fine to 5, but 1080p is not perfect. I would need to do sidebars. Let's see. So sidebars are generally can be enabled automatically if you do fit inside black bars. So if I ran this, so right here, this is 720. Notice there's no sidebars. So if we go in here and tell the app to run at 1920 by 1080, I'm pretty sure I'll have sidebars. It's minimal. I mean, you can get away with that. That's pretty big though. That's like ultra small resolution. Another thing you could do, so I do a lot of my testing on 1280 by 720. But another thing you could do is change the frame size to, let's say, 384 by 216. Resize my camera to match that. So this would be 384 by 216. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, see that doesn't at that point it's broke because it's so dedicated to the actual original build size, and those are the problems that you would have to overcome when you're dealing with things like that. But that's an advanced example. That's a lot of Lua coding and things like that, which you can get Lua into Clickteam by using the XLua, but that's beyond this scope. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to create an active object so you can do it. I think it's right click, insert, or Control J. And we're going to go ahead and add another active object. All active objects start. So if you double click, it opens up this panel. All active objects start at 32 by 32. Hit Control A and delete that. And we're going to go on down here. We're going to switch this to 16 by 16. Change our hotspots so that they're in the corner. Apply. Let's see here. What else do we got? Okay. And then you can't leave it blank, so we're just going to have to throw in some like color, and that box is perfectly fine. So when you create an application, it looks like this. This is set to 640 by 480. That's old resolution that you don't really want to use anymore. I set mine to 384 by 216. It's not perfect, but it scales all right for 1080p. If I run things at 1280 by 720 under this, because this is separate from this. This is your actual scene. Okay, they call it frames. You can set this to however big you want it set to, but I generally leave this to be the size of the working resolution so that it scales appropriately. And then I set things to my virtual, which is anything beyond this, and we'll go into that. Anyways, I also set my frames to black because it gives you that old retro. And then I set my border colors to black. And then if you hit fit inside black bars, so like for right now, let's say borders are white. If you look, I'm playing this, there's no white bars, okay? If I go to 1920 by 1080, no white bars, okay? So both scale well, both work, and that's why I use my frame sizes to be this. Okay, so let's see here. Back to 7. Then the reason why I do 1280 by 720 is because I get this, because I eliminate the headers and I eliminate the menu, which is all part of the application here. So there's headers gone, menu bars gone. Really don't need that because I already have it scaled the way it needs to be. We don't need that because we're doing it in pixels. Anti-aliasing would just kind of screw us up. But yeah, so pretty much everything is what you want the resolution for the actual window size to be. Get rid of your headings, get rid of your menu bar, resize to fill the window size, which is resizing the frame. Okay, so if I change that frame size, this is frame, by the way, up here, frame editor. If I go and I click the frame and I switch this to some obscure number like 256 by, I think it's 144? I don't know. You didn't see, like, the object's just bigger. It also changes my virtual, which we'll dive into that later. Anyways, this to me is like the perfect size for pixel art games. It respects the original size with a little bit of a bump up on the widescreen, and it's what I think is it 224, which is the 8 pixels smaller than the original NES and Super Nintendo. So it just that way I get perfect divisible by 8. But all right, anyways, so a lot of things I see people do is when they first play with this program, they jump right into the frames event editor. This is the frames editor. So you got event editor and event editor, event list editor. So event list editor looks like this. Event editor looks like that. Okay. And you can switch these by hitting this button here. What I like to do so that I can maintain kind of a class system or modularity is I will actually create under events, because each active object can have its own events. There's qualifiers as well. You can add in qualifiers right here. And those qualifiers can actually be edited under here, which a lot of people actually forget that that's a thing. You can edit the icons. So if you have like you want to use these generic ones and you want to represent the generic with something else other than the question mark with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can come in here and change these graphics. Another thing is, let's expand this a little bit. Your base frame. So this is going to be your like main scene. This is the first one that loads when you run the application. Another thing is that we're not going to use frame events first. We're actually going to do our global events, then behaviors, then frame events. And the reason for that is because this is your global storyboard. So you have your storyboard editor, which is like your scene editor, and that lists all your frames. You've got your global events, which we'll go into that because we are going to use that. You can come in here and click. So if you go in here, you can click on 1, which is your first scene. You have your layers. We use those. Trust me, they're extremely handy for parallax scrolling. But once again, let's get back to what we're doing. I apologize. We need to go to creating a new active object, and we're going to name this active object. So we're going to right click and rename it. In this case, we'll just call it player. And then right now, if you hit run, and this is run frame, does nothing. You can hit any arrow key, nothing. Doesn't do anything. You've got a debugger screen right here. I usually put it in my other windows, so you'll probably never see it. And then you can use this to stop the operation of the program if you get stuck. But you can also, because of the size I choose, you can come up here and hit stop here as well. This is your build and run. We don't use that unless we're basically done, which it's not going to happen anytime soon. But, so, I have 0 events, nothing here, as you can tell. And like I was saying, each active object, other objects can do this as well, can have their own behaviors, or like modular code. And in this case, we're going to have behaviors, and we're going to hit new, and we're going to call the new one, double clicking on it, and call this controls. Okay. And then right here, we can edit that. Now what it's going to do is it's going to bring up this where it says player controls. This is entirely separate from frame. You can even come over here now, right click and go player controls. What we want to do is we want to create a set of actions or events. We don't want to be in this one. I don't like this layout. I go here so that we can always have our code properly laid from top to bottom, because everything's still from top to bottom, just like traditional coding. What we want to do is we are not also going to use any of the pre-built movement. Stay away from that. These are special conditions that we will deal with later. We have our attributes or our values. We have strings, flags, or booleans. I've then kind of like on or off. You've got your effects. Each active object can have its own effect as well. I've got my own custom ones that I've built in the past for other games. So there's a one that I had borrowed from a friend of mine. I haven't really played with it much, but it does sprite sheets so that you can have individual like animations, and we'll get into that as well if I plan on still using this. But for right now, oh, you can edit these as well through here, these shaders. And that's the other reason why I sit here and I go, man, like Clickteam Fusion is so powerful. Like you have options for these things like shaders and whatnot, and it's really self-explanatory when you start playing around with it, you know? Because like you can set conditions and variables inside of the actual shaders. You know, you've got your palettes and you've got your, you know, these are things that you assign and change. You know, like your texture is this texture is like, where is it? This is the texture. Whatever's in here is the texture. You know? Like one of my old projects I was working on, which I abandoned. This one right here, like this is another one. This is an example of using shaders. Like if I run it, it's gonna throw an error because of the text error. But this is a shader right here. This rotates through a shader. This stats bar is a shader. Like, you know, and if I hit, I used to have this what is this? The enemy info overlay. I don't know how to do it anymore because I haven't used this stuff in such a long time that a lot of it's kind of lost to me now. But everything in here is built under behaviors, you know. So let's go back in here. So this is easy. So right here, you hit behaviors. I have my debugging on and off right here. Like if I switch to this view, it might be a little bit easier to see. Like you hit upon pressing F1. So now I remember. Like if I go in here and run this, and I hit F1, look, now I have a debugger. You know? And if I click on the monsters, I know where this monster is. I know my current state. But like, it's a spider class, you know? Oh, yeah, he just knocked me out. Like, I can click on the slime right here, and it tells me the slime's distance from the player and, you know, different things like that for troubleshooting. Like, oh, look, he's right on me now, and the current state is knocked out because I've been hit, you know? This is how powerful this program actually is, and people give it so much crap. Like, you can, here's the, they're lost on me right now, but if I go to the player, I've got qualifiers that we were talking about. Like, these are qualifiers. It's an engine qualifier. This is a player. It says right here, start loop for each engine. You know, these things, it's so powerful, and I don't know. Anyways, I digress. Let's go out of here. So now what we're gonna do is we have our behavior, we have player, and it's under controls. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna organize. We're always going to organize. So you're gonna right click on the one, not on the new condition, because that's gonna pop that up. You're gonna right click on the one, and you're gonna create a group. We're gonna call this group movement, or actually let's do X controls. Okay, so then we're going to do that again, and we're going to right click and we're going to do new group of events. We're going to call this Y controls. And now we're separating our X from our Y. Then, or we could do, let's just say this is a, let's call this just top, let's call it primary, whatever, primary controls. But, so this is in a group, this is outside of the group, this is in a group. The reason I want to use groups is because you can activate and deactivate these groups by editing them. So you can activate it and deactivate it from the start of, and these are great for loops, which we'll get into when we decide to start making the map. But, so you go in here under primary, double click to collapse and open again. And we're going to do a new condition. Simply just click on the condition. But if you look at it the other way, you have it like this with everything. And this is the player, you know. And we're going to click on that and we're going to say, right here's keyboard controls. Or if you wanted to, you could go in here and simply add in a joystick controller, you know, like another expansion. And now we have the ability to assign a joystick. And the joystick itself can have its own behavior. It can have its own modular behavior. You can program this and reuse this for whatever game you wanted to. And you can literally tell it, you know, under a new behavior that, you know, you can check these things off. You can, it's just, it dumbfounds me with the amount of like negative response this program gets. We're going to deal with controllers right now, but I mean, if you look, it even has like, isn't an Xbox controller, you know, and that's like the most common controller used, which means that it, for the most part, it's already ready to be used with an Xbox controller. You can plug it in and test your game straight from your controller. But anyways, once again, behaviors. So right click, you can do it from here, you can do it from here, you can do it from here. It's full access to it. Go to behaviors, go back into our controls. Now what we're going to do is we're going to just click on new condition and we're going to run a keyboard and we're going to say upon pressing is just like a one hit, like you hit it once. Okay. If you've got a repeat one where you're repeating, and so that's like, it's going to constantly do the action. So in this case, we're going to just do it as press the key. Okay, so like let's do D. But let's also say we want to insert another one, and we're going to go repeat with right. Okay, now this is saying right. Currently it says both of them have to be pressed. But if you right click here, you can do a or, logical or, and now it's going to say if either one of these is pressed, either D or right. And then what we're going to do here for testing, we'll get into more advanced things here, is what we're going to do is we're going to set the coordinate. We're going to set the current player's coordinate to his current position, so his current X coordinate, and we're going to add, actually you could do, to his current coordinate plus 1 for right now. And if I go in here and I hit this, this is right key, this is D. It's doing the same thing. Okay. But what we want to do is we want to go in here and we're going to add some new variables. So the first one we're going to add is X position. We're going to add another one. We're going to add a Y position. And we're going to right click on the one and we're going to insert a new line. And we're going to say at the start of the frame, we're going to set these variables, so this variable, X position, to where the player is currently positioned on the frame. So if I move this character here, it's always going to make sure that X position is in the exact same spot that it was in the frame. Then what we can do is we need to go ahead and add some more things to it. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and add a X velocity. We're going to add a Y velocity. Oh, getting trigger happy. Y velocity. All right. And so right click, go back into controls. So, oh, one other thing is because we're dealing with directional behavior. Let's click on the player. See, we can stay in here and add things too. We need to add a DX and a DY. And what that's going to do is right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add to the dx. Okay? And we're going to add 1. And why my numpad didn't work is beyond me. 1. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to say always, or actually, we're going to replace that. We want to check and make sure. So, 1 value. And we're going to say is dx greater than 0. If so, we're going to go in here and we're going to set velocity to, let's say, 80. Now, I'm going to show you something here in a second. Then we're going to add another one, and this is where we're going to add the always. So always, and we're going to go down here and set the x position to the x position plus the velocity times the direction. This is, so the dx acts like a trigger, an on and off. So it's a multiplier. So right now, if I ran this, it's not going to do anything. If I hit D or right, nothing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add another to here, and we're going to set the x position of the active object, and we're going to set that to the y position. And now, whoop, oh, where'd it go? What? See, but it's moving. Now, I'm going to show you another thing. So, application. We have global variables now, global values and strings. We're going to create a new one. I'm going to do something that most people don't do because they don't think it's possible, like without extra extensions, and I don't understand this, is we're going to create a delta. Delta made. Now, once again, we're going to go into the global event editor, and we're going to say always. We're going to grab our globals. Global variables come from the gears. We're going to change a global value, okay? We're going to set delta to 1.0. This makes it a float. Divided by the number of frames per second. There's your delta. Done. Okay. Now we're going to go back into our frame. So essentially what I did is I created the delta timer in here because Clickteam Fusion already calculates your frame speeds for you automatically. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go back into our behaviors. And we're actually going to bump this up a little bit because I set velocity to 80. That's kind of fast, but we're going to now multiply it by delta because it's a global. It doesn't require any fancy naming convention. And naming convention is like this, where you have your variable plus the name of the object. So now that I have delta and I run this, wow, it's a lot slower, isn't it? Look at that. Oh my goodness. But one thing that hasn't changed is now I need to reset this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go above the primary. Actually, we can still write. We can go right above 3. We're going to insert a new event, and we're going to always set our x back to 0. And so if I hit this now, apologize, that should have worked. Oh no, replace this with always. Sorry guys. There. Now we're going to set dx to 0. And if I let go, see? Now it's doing the whole delta time thing. And we can bump this up to 100. See? Another thing you could do is click on the player, add in a new thing called speed. Oh, and that's already built in, so we're going to go with SPD. We're going to set that to 100. Now, variables cannot be assigned as floats. They can only be assigned as integers, so this is why I do delta timing through the main event editor. So now, let's hand type this, because sometimes it's good to learn how to do that. I didn't have to search for it. I didn't have to come in here and look for it. I knew what the variable was, I knew what the active object was, and I named it. Right? And it's currently telling me there's a syntax error, which means that's not capitalized. It has to be exactly how you named the active object. Works. And I can change the speed to 200. See? And then instead of going through and adding all the other different things, we can now right click, copy this, and we can go ahead and paste it in now. And we can say that we want to go left now. We can say I want to go A now. Oops, sorry. I want to go A now. I'm going to right click on this and replace this with a subtract value. We're going to subtract from X by 1. Okay. And then we're going to say, edit this and say that if it's different than 0. Okay. And that's all I should have to change, correct? Nope. Let's see what happened here. Oh, that's because I hit spread value. Subtract from. Thank you. Jesus. All right. Now, there it is. See? And there we have it. And if anyone actually wants to argue with me, I can do this. Set the frame rate to 1000. And it's still going to run this exactly how it was ran before. And if you want to know, I can do this. Let's see here. Insert object. Let's do this as a string. And I need to change its color because obviously it's not going to show. There's the string. We'll go into the global. We're going to say always. We're going to import the string object. And we're going to change its variable to number of frames per second. Oh, we're going to cast it as a string because it's a number. There you go, 1000 frames per second. Or you can go plus, let's see here. String delta plus. And you can see what it's dividing by. But guess what? It's still 1000 frames per second. And it's still functioning as if it's running at, I don't know, 1 divided by, let's see what that is. Shall we? So 1.0 divided by frames per second. We'll just take this here, turn it into a string and see, same thing, 0.001. Or we can go multiply it back in. Oop. So it's 1,000. But no matter what the frames per second are, it's going to run and function at that speed because that is how delta timing works. Machine independent speed essentially tells it to run, but I don't want to use that. I want to use this, and I want to cap it at 60 frames per second and still run it at 60 frames. It works, guys. I'm telling you right now, it just works. Now, I think that's pretty much it. You can kind of get an idea of what's happening here. Like I said, you could probably rename this to X controls. And that's everything for the X position. You can collapse it. And you can actually copy it. You can edit this one and call it Y controls. Oops. And start going in here and changing these things so that and I'm backwards. This is actually down. S up. W. And we're gonna add one, subtract one. And as you can see, I'm simply just going through changing values. We can change. Now this is the most complicated one actually. So what I would do is just copy this and replace it with, no, we're good. That's right. Duh. Y, then change these. There we go. And then this is the one I was talking about. Okay, this is what I meant. Change this to Y coordinates. And then, once again, you could go like this if you knew what you were doing. And then, let's see, replace this with, yeah. We gotta add, there's the kicker right there. Add your Y coordinates to the, no, let's screw that up. Copy that, put that there, change this to X. There we go. There we go. And done, just like that. And so now your Y's and your X's are completely separate. Everything's done there. You can, if you wanted to, you could keep Y in here, edit, deactivate it, and then create a jump function and turn it into a platformer. But that way you have like a universal template for your engine. So everything's set up like, you're like, okay, I got my player, I've got my other things, everything's good to go. You know what I mean? Like, but anyways, that's the basics of that. That's setting up behaviors. That's setting up the screen. That's changing to make sure the resolution's right and you're resizing for more of a retro size. You've got the player moving now. If you wanted to insert, like I said, joystick, you could actually go into the player's behavior and insert view disco insert, import the controller, and you would just like compare, your directional changes and things like that. You could check axes. You could say, is the x-axis a certain, like, I think it's in decimals, but this, you could create a template, use that template for everything like I am here. And if this is set up correctly, I can actually create a whole new game just like this. And grab this player, drag it in. You should still already have all his behaviors. Just like this. Everything's still in here. All his variables and everything are all still here. The only thing that would be missing, which you could, if you wanted to, so obviously delta's missing. So in this case, you could, where's delta? Yeah, global variable A right here. You could switch this to 1.0 divided by frame speed. It's so far, it's going to give me, I don't know why it's giving me a weird, let's see here. Frame rate. Sorry, that's why. You do this. Wherever that's missing, you put that in there like that. And I believe, yeah, it doesn't affect this one. See? It's done. Just moved it over from one application to another. And it's fully functional. Use behaviors. I've said this from the very beginning. Use your behaviors. It makes things so much nicer when it comes to coding, or at least creating events. But that's it. That's all I wanted to really show you guys, and we'll go next step here soon with, adding in an advanced like tile drawing system. But that's it for this. That's all I wanted to show you. So I appreciate it. Thanks.